Good morning, everyone. Andrew Scheer is hitting Justin Trudeau in the House of Commons on the blockades and all of the stuff that's happening. He calls him, he says, Andrew Scheer says in the House of Commons, #Trudeau shows less leadership and less of a backbone than radical protesters. As Skippy responds, everyone shouts shame and liar. Can someone explain to Canadians why Liberals and Trudeau are still running this country? Here you go.
Radical groups like Extinction Rebellion, an organization that has been listed as a terrorist organization in the United Kingdom. So is the Prime Minister not embarrassed that he has shown less leadership and less of a backbone than radical protesters who just want to shut down our economy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it really concerns me that I might have heard the Leader of the Official Opposition refer to Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs as radical protesters just because he disagreed with them, because that's exactly what he just said, and that is unacceptable, Mr.
Order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I recommend the members opposite check the Blues, check Hansard for what the Leader of the Opposition just said, because he made that equivalency, and that is unacceptable. I may disagree with the leaders of the hereditary chiefs.
So we're not going to talk about the issue at all. We're going to talk about how racist it is. It's insanity. This is insanity. This is our government, right? Here's the CBC, and they say Wet'suwet'en chiefs ministers reach tentative arrangement over land title, but debate over pipeline continues. So this isn't over, and I'll show you that it's not over. A Wet'suwet'en hereditary chief. This was published, by the way, yesterday at 9:43 a.m. So we're March 2nd. It was published March 1st. A Wet'suwet'en hereditary chief and senior government ministers say they have reached a proposed arrangement to acknowledge land title rights established more than 20 years ago in a Supreme Court decision. The parties agree the proposal is an important step in discussions related to a natural gas pipeline dispute that has prompted solidarity protests across Canada in recent weeks. But the parties still disagree on how to move forward with the controversial pipeline. Federal Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Carolyn Bennett and British Columbia Indigenous Minister Scott Fraser would not give details on the proposed arrangement, saying it first has to be reviewed by the Wet'suwet'en people. Interesting, right? I mean, we can't have details? It's got to be reviewed? Is this a union negotiation? I'm scrolling down. There's more to this story, but still opposed to the pipeline. Woos said the hereditary leaders remain opposed to the pipeline. He warned developers that the hereditary leaders will continue to protect their waters, wildlife habitats, and traditional sites with, quote, everything we have. As Wet'suwet'en, we are the land and the land is ours, he said. We are not going to look at it any alternative ways. Fraser said the tentative land and title arrangements would not be retroactive on the pipeline issue, and the parties remained in disagreement about how to move forward. The project that's in place, it has been permitted and it's underway, he said. Coastal GasLink issued a statement Sunday to say it appreciates that Wet'suwet'en title and rights have been identified, but the company says company has permits in place and it intends to resume construction activity on Monday. And here is further information that this whole thing's not over. The rail barricade in Kewaunee, I hope that's how you say that, to stay in place for now despite Wet'suwet'en agreement, Mohawk leader says. Mohawk activists in Kewaunee, south of Montreal, will maintain their rail blockade for the time being, despite the proposed agreement that was reached Sunday between government officials and Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs in British Columbia. Quote, we want some more clarification from the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs before we make a decision, said Kenneth Deere, a representative of Kenaway's traditional longhouse political system, who has been acting as a spokesperson for the activists at the blockade. It's a big decision to decide to take down the barricade or not, and they want to make sure they have everything before they make that decision, Deere told the reporters at the barricade Sunday afternoon, where Mohawk flags flew from a tent and pointed wooden shelter protected by low concrete barriers. Yeah. Deere, who said he'd been in contact with hereditary chiefs, said good things came out of the meeting in BC, as well as some things that were not so good. He said agreements include discussions on who are custodians of the land, as well as recognition of the hereditary chiefs, which he describes as significant. However, the pipeline is not resolved, and that's a very big issue, not only for Wet'suwet'en chiefs, but for everybody, he said. The barricade in Kanaway went up February 8th in support of Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs who are opposed to a pipeline project slated to go through their ancestral territory. So, I mean, even though the Wet'suwet'en chiefs have come to an agreement, these guys say, no, I don't know if it's a good enough agreement, so we're going to keep our blockade up. Isn't that wild? And just in case you thought the terrorism was over, nope, CBC reporting, and this is March 1st, 7:21 p.m. Firefighters scrambled to douse flames at CN Rail Building in Prince Rupert. Firefighters are scrambling to douse flames at a CN building at the waterfront in Prince Rupert, BC. The fire near Quinsta Station broke out mid-afternoon Sunday and was still burning by evening. A crowd of about 70 people gathered on a nearby hillside to watch the firefighting efforts. The Prince Rupert Fire Department was not able to provide details on the state or cause of the fire early Sunday evening. So, yeah, it's not done. It's not done by a long shot. Here's from February 20th. This is a pro-pipeline protest, and it says the Wet'suwet'en people hold event to show support for the BC pipeline. The blockades continue through Canada with protesters carrying signs that say things like "Stand with Wet'suwet'en" and "Wet'suwet'en strong." Most of them are showing their support for hereditary chiefs who disagree with the construction of the $6.6 billion Coastal GasLink pipeline through their land in northern BC, according to CBC News. But it is now known that many Wet'suwet'en people support the pipeline and are angered by the ongoing protests. Some people see the natural gas pipeline as a chance to build their community with the new jobs it will bring. Though there is still some division in the community, the 20 elected First Nation councils have signed agreements with and shown their support for the project. The national protest began when some of the hereditary chiefs showed their opposition to the project and claimed that it violated their rights. On Wednesday, the community of Houston held an event at a movie theater and brought out about 200 people from their community of 2,000 for 3 hours. Houston is located right on the path of the pipeline. The pro-pipeline event had Wet'suwet'en Nation members explaining why they support the project. During the meeting, people mentioned that they wanted to see the economic opportunities that could be created by the construction. One of the supporters, Robert Skin, was an elected member of the Skin Tyee First Nation Council, which is a part of the Wet'suwet'en Nation. He noted that the pipeline will give the next generation a better life. Quote, "With the benefit agreement that the Skin Tyee did sign, I see us being in a better place even within the next 5 years," he said. When he was talking at the theater, he noted that the protesters only have, quote, one side of the story and are not looking at the positive things that the project could bring. Yeah, it's unfortunate. We're only getting one side of the story. This is about frontier tech. This is where the article ends, okay? So, this is the quote to finish off the article. We're going to listen to it here. I think it's a bad plan. I think that if you wanted to have a robust, serious conversation, you maybe do it before you shut down the whole oil field, right? But, I mean, hey, I'm not in charge of Canada, right? Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister, and Chrystia Freeland is the Deputy PM. So here she is in condescending mom voice.
What I think we need to do now is have a very urgent, very serious conversation between the federal government, the provincial government, the oil sector, and indeed actually the whole country, talking about how do we achieve both of these objectives. And the good news from my perspective is I believe the oil sector in particular, energy CEOs, are absolutely there. What I think we need to do now is...
I'm sure the CEOs are there because there's lots of tax dollars involved, right? There's lots of subsidies for people who are trying to make green technology. And if you're going to shut down the oil fields, yeah, the CEOs for the oil companies are going to be there because they need to know what's coming. Unfortunately, nobody could have predicted the foreign influence and the foreign underpinning, foreign funding of these claiming Wet'suwet'en hereditary, or claiming allegiance with the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs. But they just popped up out of nowhere, organically, totally organic. Nobody could have predicted that. It's crazy. Anyway, here's global news on the Tech Frontier cancellation. Tech Frontier cancellation should be a wake-up call for Canada, says Freeland. Teck Resources' decision to withdraw its Frontier mine application should be a wake-up call for Canadians, says Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. In an interview with the West Block, Mercedes Stephenson, Freeland's in an interview with the West Block's Mercedes Stephenson, Freeland said the country needs to take the decision as a turning point for a crucial conversation about the future of resources development in Canada. Actually, Ms. Freeland, everybody said this would happen. And then when it happened, everybody said, see, we told you this would happen when you passed Bill C-69 and the No More Pipelines bill, because it's just endless paperwork, right? It's bureaucracy. It's and approvals and court dates and all sorts of stuff. You never get the project. These guys spent $1 billion trying to get this done. And now you want to have a serious conversation? Now? When how many pipelines have been? You bought one pipeline, Trans Mountain, and now what are you going to do with this one? Going to buy it too? I mean, we don't have any money. You've sent it all out of the country. What is the plan? I don't think there's a plan. Back to the article. Quote, I think we need to treat Tech's withdrawal as a wake-up call for our country and say now is the time to do that hard work. We actually face up to the fact that it's a challenge. It's a real challenge to reconcile ambitious action on climate change and a strong economy and a strong oil and gas sector, she said. But we can do it, and I think now is the moment for us to do that work. Well, from what I understand, liquid natural gas isn't an oil pipeline, but these people don't want to hear it. They don't care. They hear pipeline and they say, no, we're eco warriors, despite the fact that multiple trains have derailed and spilled oil all over the place. And trains are much less safe and trains are much less efficient. And they clog up the rails for delivering goods to market as well, like grains, etc. Right? I mean, is there some sanity left in this country, or are we completely ruled by leftist imbeciles? Because that's what it seems like. We can have a strong oil and gas sector as well as fight climate change. We just have to tax them into submission. No problem. Condescending mom voice. Oh my goodness. Back to the article. Teck abandoned its bid to get federal cabinet approval for a proposed oil sands mining project worth roughly $20 billion last week. Its CEO, Don Lindsay, wrote a public letter outlining the reasons for the decision, saying the company's application had, quote, surfaced a broader debate over climate change and Canada's role in addressing it. I scroll down a little bit more. Teck's withdrawal prompted fierce criticism of the government from conservatives across the country who linked the uncertainty around the future of addressing climate change with the government's handling of 3 weeks of nationwide blockades. I scroll down a little bit more. Freeland said the decision was important. Quote, this was a crucial moment, she said, of the statement by Trudeau calling for the blockade to come down. It was essential for him to say that, and since then, what we have been seeing is progress, by no means concluded, but progress in getting the blockades dismantled. She said the challenge now must be addressing how to move forward. The tensions and the strains are absolutely real, and now is the time for us to put our shoulder to the wheel and knit our country together, she said, and then the quote with which I started this article with. But, you know, just it's a weak response. It was a weak response to the blockade in the first place. It was a weak response when things seemed dire. And now it's interesting. There's no propane shortages. The propane trains seem to be going fine, but there's still some strategic places shut down, making lots of news. Isn't that interesting to note? Isn't it strange? Isn't it wonderfully convenient for the people of Quebec to maintain their propane supply via rail, not pipeline? And isn't it considerate of those protesters to just let that train go through? I wonder if the OPP are acting, or if any of the police departments are acting differently along specific rail lines. Interesting to think about. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com and CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful